Hey everyone, Brian Beeler coming to you from the Storage Review conference room. And today, as you can see, we've got this wonderful LG unit set up, which must mean that we're talking thin client, and thin client indeed we are. And unfortunately, that also means I've got to bring in our thin client expert, Tom Fenton. Tom, how's it going, buddy?
I'm doing good, Brian, and yourself?
I feel like that introduction is about as good as I can put together for you. But to be fair, you've been messing with these units for what, 8, 10 years now? What's your
Y-
longevity and end user?
Yeah, actually, I did the first Horizon course for VMware back in 2006, maybe. So what is that?
Wow.
It's a long time. Yeah, we had these little Weiss clients that were, considerably underpowered, but been doing hands-on with them for a long time.
Well, so it's interesting that you say that because that's kind of part of the problem that sometimes we see in thin client, zero client, whatever, is that the perception is that they're little underpowered boxes when in fact this LG unit's 34-inch wide, I think, integrated webcam. It's set up running Horizon right now with video, with a web browser pulled up side by side. This is not what thin clients looked like when you started in the game, or even just 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah, absolutely. This is not your father's thin client, as I like to say. I mean, that has a full-blown Intel processor in it. And the interesting thing is, I mean, because processors have gotten cheap, things like that, is they're actually doing some real interesting stuff with all that power that they're shoving in the back of that. And that actually has a full PC built into the console itself.
Yeah, and the great thing is that they're not all that expensive. We looked at the smaller version in the piece we published. We'll put a link to it in the description on YouTube. But that one was a little bit more focused for medical physician use cases. This one very much targeted to the remote workforce, which, to be honest, if we're adapting to this world where a lot of the workforce is home or remote, having something like this on your desk, if you're, I don't care if you're an executive or a task worker, all the screen real estate's wonderful, and the user experience is really good. This goes a long way to employee satisfaction, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, absolutely. And I believe with that unit, I know the other one we took a look at, you can hook up a second monitor to it.
Yep.
And I was displaying videos on both monitor and handled them without blinking. So they are very, very impressive now.
So, but it's not just LG that makes this happen. In this case, they partnered it up with iGel. And to get a better perspective from iGel and what's going on and why this relationship with LG is so important, we're going to bring in Mike Barmonde from iGel. Mike, how are you?
Doing well. How are you guys?
Hey, we're having a good time with these units and with the joint solution. Give us a minute or two on what you're doing with LG and why this partnership is so important.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, LG has really stepped up their game, I think, globally, and more importantly, to accommodate a unique solution like iGel. I think a lot of this stems from the fact that a lot of enterprises, and especially just a lot of end users, they want to choose their own device, right? They don't, back to Tom's point, right? They don't want this little underpowered device. They want something that's powerful, something that they can work from, and something that is super user friendly and gives them kind of a modern look and feel. And that's where the iGel software at its core kind of augments things. I think beyond that as well, the chip shortage that we're currently experiencing is really a big focus for us. I know that as companies out there try to figure out how to fill these gaps, whether they try to extend the life of their devices or they try to bring in something like LG, the LG solution is just awesome to bring to bear with their supply chain.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, the partnership, though, so from the hardware standpoint, obviously they're bringing these to market. They're able to deliver them, which, to your point, is sort of fundamental to your success there. But when you look at the relationship that LG has with iGel, so you talked a little bit about what they bring to the table. What do you do to help facilitate the go-to-market strategy?
Well, I think it's pretty simple, right? I think we are the software that empowers their hardware. They bring this, it's kind of like you have this physical virtual world construct these days, where users want the widescreen, they want the peripheral access, they want the cloud type feature sets, they want the compactness, as Tom mentioned, of putting a PC in a monitor. What iGel does is we're the software that powers all that. So we provide an operating system that's purpose built that can be installed on an LG device, or you can even take, a little USB key and plug it in and run our software as kind of in read-only mode to allow you to kind of access all the goodness that is iGel and get right to your VDI and DAS applications very seamlessly.
Right. Yeah, and it's funny because I think we go back to, Tom, like the old school thinking of what is VDI, and I don't know how many VM worlds I've been to where it was always like this bulk task user call center kind of thing. The not so sexy ways of thinking about VDI. But now, I mean, as you look at this experience of this thing in the background, it's not I'm not interacting with it a lot, but it's playing this high res Red Bull TV behind me that's pretty darn good for just pushing pixels over the wire.
Yeah, I was really impressed with the quality of this screen, and I know iGel's done some really trick stuff with multimedia redirection, stuff like that, and maybe we can talk about that a little bit later.
Yeah, well, let's get into that, Mike, because we can talk about how great the relationship is and how great it looks on the desk, but from an IT administrator standpoint, there are many other questions in terms of how do I provision these things? How do I manage these? If I've got a distributed workforce, what are my new challenges as an admin that might be a little different than just shipping notebooks out that run Windows? That's one way to do it, but this modality is something that's very popular. So why don't we get into that a little bit and have you show us some of the back end about how these things are managed and deployed?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, as we talked about, I have kind of a demo ready. Would you guys like to see something like that on the back end?
Yeah, let's get going.
So iGel is really two components. It is a management plane, which you use to configure your settings and your profiles, and then it is pretty much a device plane, right? Your end users that actually run the iGel OS operating system on their device. So what you're seeing now is you're actually seeing the management plane. The cool thing about the iGel management plane, it can run anywhere. It can run in your data center. It can run in public cloud, right? We are just a set of applications that are installed on a typical OS. So you can install it on Windows Server. You can even install it on a Linux backend and run it there. The GUI that you're seeing here, this interface, is really a console. So you can actually install the components somewhere, and then you can actually install the console on your local workstation, and then have remote access to configure things that way, which is pretty slick. The best way to describe iGel in the management piece is that we are suited to actually deploy settings in very group policy-like fashion, is the best way I can describe it. So those of you that are familiar with Microsoft Active Directory, we're very similar in terms of how we configure things. So on the left-hand side here, we have what we call our profiles, which are pretty much the settings, and then you have down here the devices, right? And this is where you apply those. With iGel being more of a device-centric solution, we don't have really the concept of users as objects, but you can take your profiles, then you can apply them to your objects, which are your iGel OS-enabled devices down below. So you can create what other kind of organization you want that's fitted more towards what you do, right? It could be geographically described. It could be based on maybe a department or whatever you'd like. That's how it works. So you can see here inside my demo folder, I've got things like, hey, I want to set, like a network setting here. And when we drill into it, there's a network setting. We can give it different versions. We can call it what it is. Again, a best practice from us is we tell you, why don't you just set one setting per profile, right, per setting, and then you can apply those bulk settings to a device via the method that you'd like. So here in this folder, I have about 14. And then when you come down here to devices, right, it shows the total number of devices in these folders. And then when I actually get to my device, which actually sits here, sorry about that, you can see right here on the right-hand side are all these objects that are assigned to that device based on the structure that I've given it. So as you can see here, this is the folder. I've assigned these profiles to the folder, so when a device comes into play, I can automatically jump into it. You guys with me so far? Do you have any questions up to this point?
Well, it seems intuitive. If your org's got a couple key functions, sales or some sort of admin support, yep, or IT or whatever, you can group those together. And then I suppose if you have someone that crosses over or has some additional functionality that they require, then you go ahead and edit that one device and give them that extra kicker. Absolutely.
You hit it on the head, right? So again, same rules apply as kind of setting up your Active Directory environment. Group it by roles, group it by geographic location. We even have a set of back-end automation that allows a device when it comes in, as a user specifies, a certain string. It could be completely unique. You could call it sales. You could call it, sales Pennsylvania, or you could call it, accounting Europe, whatever you'd like to call it. When they specify this exact tag, it'll actually place that device in a folder, and then it'll inherit all the different profiles from there. So it makes it really easy to automate where a device lands, and then from there, if you need an administrator to come into this backend and actually move things around, you can.
Yeah.
Too, and I suppose if you push something new down the line, if you got some sort of new tool, some sales tool or whatever, could you drop it in here retroactively and have it update all those endpoints?
Absolutely. Again, the way our hierarchy set up, I could drop it down here into demos, right? You can see there's nothing there, and it would cascade or inherit into all the folders below. Absolutely.
Great.
Yeah. How far does this scale out? How many devices can it handle?
Yeah, tens of thousands is what our architectures can handle. It really depends on, obviously some constraints around, hey, do I want, geographic diversity? Do I need failover? What do the database pieces look like? We can pretty much accommodate all those. We have one of our largest retail customers out there that's running almost 100,000 devices in their architecture. So,
wow. Yeah, and I imagine you just have some role-based access control, and you can run multiple instances of the console at the same time.
Absolutely. I think, and you just hit it on the head, right? I think one of the things that iGel's really taken notice of is the support structure within an IT organization for an enterprise. Whereas, obviously, in my role, as you can see here, I would be doing a lot of the admin work to move those around, Brian, to what you said. But when it comes down to actually supporting them and coming in here, we have the ability to actually delegate access, and then doing things like, okay, let's shadow the device, right? Let's connect to this device. Let's get some access to it, right? And then that would be our ability to actually get in there. And then we have security around actually preventing that as well. So there's a lot of things that you can do. You can send a message to the device. You can do other things that way. So it makes it really easy to do different things and manage it. But you can also, segment out support as well. Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah, I found the interface pretty straightforward, pretty intuitive to use. It once I figured out I don't know if that's the right term, but kind of a policy driven to the devices. It made sense once I understood that concept.
Hey, Mike,
and that's exactly right. Yeah, go ahead.
For the big organizations that are adopting this, or maybe for the small ones too, how much of it is on-prem hosted with Horizon or whatever it is they want to use versus cloud-based solutions?
That's a great question. I think what you're seeing a shift in that mentality, right? And it's not binary. It's not, hey, we're Citrix or VMware today and we want to go Microsoft AVD or Amazon Workspaces tomorrow, whatever it could be, right? We're seeing this new approach where even, I guess what you call the legacy on-prem people that have used VMware and Citrix for years, adopt a business continuity strategy using cloud workspaces. I think as applications and data have become more fluid, between data governance and security and those type of things, the ability to deliver multiple desktops with the same applications and data is becoming much more relevant. So we're definitely seeing a deployment of both, with a lot of companies focusing on, hey, we're using this today. What does business continuity look like if something akin to COVID or just based on our planning happens again? How can we make that work? And iGel can accommodate both at the same time.
Yeah. So is this agnostic? I know we've been kind of talking hardware-based thin clients, but I also know that you guys have the Pocket software device as well. So does this work with both those the same?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the unique and more, I guess, it's more of a hidden nugget out there in what iGel does, but it's fairly obvious once you realize it. iGel is an operating system. We can be distributed as such, right? So anywhere that you can deploy an operating system, you can deploy iGel. So it could be using it with something like Microsoft SCCM to deploy it out to a number of devices to actually replace the OS that's on that device. Or it could be taking, to your point, right, one of our read-only USB sticks, and that's one of these right here, these little iGel UD pockets that we can provide, or you can even potentially create your own. Take one of these, put it into a current device, boot from it, so you're into the iGel environment. Maybe it's a BYOD environment. When you're done, pull it out of the system, and then it actually goes back to the previous state with the OS that's actually installed on the hard drive. So multiple ways to consume it, depending on your landscape. And you have contractors maybe that sit somewhere. You have full-time employees. You even have now remote employees, and we can accommodate all those from that perspective.
So, me being an old support guy, one of the things was trying to get people to explain what's going on the screen. What are you seeing? And they, whatever, they just don't do that very good. I think you guys have screen sharing, shadowing, something like that, right?
Absolutely, and that's one of my favorite features, right? I know when I was in VDI, along the same, very aligned to when you were talking about some VMware stuff. That's one of our biggest problems. Someone would call in, "Hey, I'm at a Starbucks. Like, this isn't working. What's happening?" Right? And we have a lot of integrations to help out. But from a support perspective, when they are online, you can simply right-click a device and go to Shadow, and we can create a secure VNC connection, and we can force this as I'm doing here. And then when it pops up, I could actually get instant access to their desktop. So if this is a device that I have instant access to that's running right next to me on a laptop on a little USB stick that you can now see live.
Yeah, that is so huge. I mean, just a video can replace 10,000 words. And I believe when I was working with it, you could set up policies that would either alert the person that you're looking at them and actually have them acknowledge that you wanted to, depending on your corporate policies. Is that right?
You can do a gentle mode or a covert mode. Oh, but for compliance or something, you may need to have a more secretive way to access the system.
Yeah, no, to you guys' point, especially with the California privacy laws and GDPR, right? Those become critical from that standpoint. So yeah, as you can see here in the bottom right-hand corner, and I'm looking over here, it's hard to see, but this is an exact mirror of what the user would see, so they can see that they're currently being shadowed. To your point, those options can be added in, they can be removed, they can be augmented. So absolutely, we have those pieces in play.
Yeah, and then you also allow third-party integration. I worked with ControlUp, and I know that you guys allow that in it, but I know it was also, not a struggle, but you guys are very security sensitive and you have a process. So you do have third-party integration, things like that, correct?
Absolutely. In fact, it's one of the linchpins of the IGEL ecosystem are these integrations, right? When you're talking about replacing an operating system on the edge, you've got to ensure that you have everything's as plug and play and as easy as possible, and it just works. And especially, this new world of being remote, where you become a first-class citizen. I think having things like Zoom and Teams and those things are critical. So we provide one of two ways to do that, or three ways, I should say. We have a program called IGEL Ready that allows third-party vendors or partners to actually integrate their products to give our combined customers confidence that when they actually present something in IGEL OS, it's going to work. Number two, we have an optional way where you can, as an enterprise, sideload an application, almost like installing an application on the OS, where you can do so securely, and then present that like we've done here with Zoom and things like Teams. Or what you could do is, again, you could present that back via the VDI or DAS session, where you have full control, as long as that VDI or DAS session supports that kind of offloading in pieces, right? So those are all great options depending on where you're at, and it creates kind of this attainment model you can use.
Yeah, and talking about Zoom, something for our write-up on the other device is that I noticed with the Horizon client, you guys do multimedia redirection, which is just huge. Do you want to talk about that for just a second?
Absolutely, right. And VMware and Citrix have really been at the forefront of bringing this to bear, which is the ability to take these, I guess, UC, Unified Communications applications, Zoom, Teams, Skype, whatever you want to call them, and actually create what they call virtual channels where these are optimized, meaning that when you're on a physical device and you're in a VDI session, right, you need a dedicated channel so you don't get choppiness. It can take advantage of hardware components on the endpoint, right? To your point, the LG screen you have there probably has some AMD or Intel, some great graphics capabilities, right? Something that just goes far beyond what's available anywhere, and offload these capabilities. So I know that Citrix and VMware have capabilities around things like WebEx, Teams optimizations are at the forefront and coming now, as well as Zoom, to allow users to actually use these things securely, but actually, leverage their hardware to make it a great experience.
Yeah, so what it's doing is actually running the application on the thin client hardware, but you instantiate it from the virtual desktop. So what that does is, because it's not taking CPU memory resources from the virtual desktop, it's allowing the host to have a greater guest density because you're doing all that on the thin client. Like I said, CPUs have gotten so powerful and so inexpensive that you can use those excess resources.
Absolutely. And even things like powerful, like, the AMD processors that have a kind of a system on a chip that include a graphics piece, right? I mean, you're not gonna play some of your major games at 4K at major levels or whatnot, right? But it's easily going to be able to handle the multimedia pieces from an enterprise level for sure.
Yeah,
we're crypto mining on this right now. I just want to show you that screen.
Awesome. Yeah, well, let me know
the Zoom capability and the support of the certification that you were talking about is important. I mean, for the remote workforce, we're spending how many sometimes hours a day on these meetings. So having a good UX there is critical. Plus something like this that has the integrated webcam in it in the top that you can pop it away when not in use. But I mean, it's nice. Those little things go a long way.
So during this transition where people are literally having to work from home overnight, do you got any great stories about there, or maybe some ugly situations that you guys were able to help people out with?
Absolutely. There's two instances that come to mind. I'm not going to name any customer names, but I think they're super relevant. One is a large retailer in Texas, and this was before the great Texas snowstorm of 2020, but it was right in the middle of COVID, and they've been using Amazon Workspaces. And when COVID hit, they were absolutely prepared to lift and shift people from home. And so their ability to actually allow their people to either, number one, lift and shift their device if they didn't have one at home, or actually use their own home device and plug in an iGel UD Pocket, allowed them to start working remotely, very quickly. So they hardly lost any productivity and downtime. Ironically enough, as usual, about 4 months later, when the big snowstorms hit in Texas and they were without power or connectivity for a couple of days in a lot of different places, because again, they were still set up using iGel with these UD Pockets, they were able to work when they did have power and internet without missing a beat. So, being able to mitigate one disaster recovery or disaster situation year is enough, but two in the same year, it's pretty amazing, and they kind of weathered both, which was awesome. The other one that I'd mention is a major healthcare company in California. When COVID hit, they had to actually, again, distribute our USB formatted device to hundreds of their workers as they worked remotely. They had iGel for a while, but they had to ensure that these type of things were actually given out, right? So our sales teams, and this is crazy to think about, our sales teams got tested, as far as I know. They went and they met each other at a location in the U.S., and they took about 1,000 of these UD Pockets and they cranked them out over 3 days to align to them, and then they shipped them out to everyone to make sure that that they were aligned and they got what they needed. So just some amazing things is, that I would really focus on the human nature, right, of helping people out. That were just amazing using iGel OS for sure.
Yeah, do you have one of those little things sitting on your desk there?
Yeah, I do. Yeah. I have a ton of them actually. Yeah, just looks like this, and even show it up.
It's getting caught in your blur. Put it close to your face. Yeah, there you go.
Put it on your forehead. Put it on your forehead. There you go.
Yeah, just a little USB.
Right? Got a banana for
little USB stick to drop in on any system.
Yeah. Talking about the iGel as a corporation, I know that the local guy drops in and visits you every once in a while, Brian, right?
Yeah, we've got a marketing guy up here in Blue Ash near our office in Anderson, and pops by, and it's been a little bit. We might have to coordinate an iGel dinner here soon.
Yeah. You owe me a steak dinner, by the way.
Oh, you've been trying to cash in on that for 5 years. All right, so Mike, let's move on to a different topic than the steak I owe time. So for orgs that want to check this out, what's the best way? I know you've got a demo through a co-brand site you've got with LG, so we'll link to that. That's a good starting point to learn more about this joint solution. But for iGel specifically, where else can people go, or what do you want them to do if they want to experience this or learn more about what you have to offer?
Really easy. Just go to our website at igel.com. There's a big button at the top right-hand corner that says try it. You can get some free hardware. We'll send you out a UD Pocket. get you engaged. You can download the software and put it on a VM if you'd like to. Whatever you'd like to do, we can accommodate it.
Great. Well, I mean, that's super friendly too for like the home lab audience and others that might work in IT but want to dabble at home and play around. Sometimes vendors and big IT brands don't make it so easy to consume. So we'll see if we can gin up some orders to those pockets and get the software out there in more people's hands. That's pretty cool. Well, this is awesome. We've had so much fun with the joint solution. Tom, I know we've got some more work coming up with LG on these thin clients that we're looking forward to. Mike, any final thoughts before we let you go?
I just want to thank you guys for the time. I know the partnership with LG has been awesome. We're, this piece with COVID is as horrible as it's been. I'm so grateful for the technology that we have these days for a lot of us to stay employed and stay connected. Even my little 6-year-old, right, her to pick up a phone and be like, oh, let's go FaceTime Papa. I'm like, okay, let's do that, right? I mean, that stuff is invaluable. I can't imagine, unfortunately, a better time for something like this to happen. And I think we're weathering it, and we're just going to get through it together.
All right. Well, thanks for your time, Tom. Thanks for joining in. We'll have links to iGel, the LG page, all the work that we've done in the description, and be sure to check that out if you want to learn more about these solutions. Thanks for tuning in.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.